guys, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel Tracking Ed. In today's video, I want to share all about my woofing and workaway experiences and how you can do it as well. Oh, also side note, I'm wearing a flower shirt. I thought it was very fitting for today's video. So what is woofing and what is workaway? Well, that is a very good question. So woofing is defined as willing workers on organic farms, or I'm also told it can mean worldwide opportunities on organic farms. So basically the idea behind woofing is that somebody like you, a traveler, will go into a certain farm, will go and stay on a farm, and you will work for the people who own that farm in exchange for food and board. Alternatively, it can be defined as workaway, although many other experiences come under the workaway banner that may not just involve farming. Workaway can also mean working for a small business, looking after children, tutoring, a whole range of different things. The idea is that both woofing and workaway benefit both people in the exchange. Many farmers or people who initiate workaways need that little bit of extra help, and they find it simple and easier to be able to give resources like accommodation and food rather than paying cash. Generally, the deal is that you work for no longer than 25 hours a week, generally 5 hours each day. There are so many different woofing and workaway opportunities. Now, how do you find them? So you need to go online and access a different website according to what you want. The website that I have used is called HelpX. HelpX shows profiles from people all across the world who need help on their farms or in their businesses or with their family. So this encompasses both woofing experiences and workaway experiences. You can also go onto websites such as workaway.com, or you can also access individual woofing sites for each country. There are many websites that offer this. It's just finding the best one that works for you, the best layout. However, with all of them, you have to pay a membership fee per year. I joined HelpX because I just find the profiles are really detailed, it's easier to look through, and I paid around $35 Australian for the whole year. Now today I wanted to share a few of my own woofing experiences overseas just to help give you a little glimpse into what it might look like. So my first woofing experience was in Hawaii on the island of Oahu. I stayed on this farm for 2 weeks. I lived in a tent, it was very basic accommodation. However, I did have free reign of all the fruits and vegetables they were growing, and they also fed us with groceries as well. Now on this farm, I just did a range of different farm work. I helped with weeding, feeding the animals, planting, cleaning up, just anything that needed to get done. The setup itself was awesome. I worked about 5 hours a day for 5 days per week, and on my off time I went and explored the island. The farm I stayed on was super close to a ton of beaches. It was right underneath a volcano, so I hiked up that. I even caught a bus to the north shore of the island a few times. There were so many great things that I could access. This was probably one of the best things about this woofing experience for me was the location. Another great reason was that I was working alongside a bunch of other awesome travelers. There were about 8 of us staying on the farm at each time, but people were coming and going. I actually ended up catching up with people I met on that farm later on in Europe that year. So you'll probably end up meeting some awesome people that you'll still remain friends with after you leave the farm. So overall, every element of this woofing experience was incredible, especially considering it was my first time. But there was a little bit of drama that went down. The day before I left, the owners ended up kicking all of us off the farm. To this day, we don't know how or why this happened. We're guessing there were some relationship issues and they just didn't want people wandering around the farm. Whatever the reason might have been, it was an awful situation because it did mean we had to leave earlier than we were planning to. For me, it wasn't as big of a deal because I was planning on leaving the next day to go to another island. So it worked out reasonably well in hindsight, but it was really difficult for the people who were planning to stay on that farm for a few weeks. Now, this is something to keep in mind, that you don't sign an official contract when you do a workaway or woofing stint. Technically, the owners can change and do whatever whenever they want. However, my story is one of the only times I've ever heard of this happening in woofing. Generally, the owners are really reliable and friendly and they won't kick you out. The second experience I want to talk to you about was completely different. This one I also found through the HelpX website, but instead of farming, I was actually tutoring a group of kids in Spain. So I lived with this family for 2 full weeks in central Spain. It was an interesting experience to say the least. My main role there was to help teach their kids English, and 2 of the older guys had big English tests coming up, so they just wanted some help to refine the skills they had, which is something that I felt I could do quite confidently. The actual work during my time staying with this family was quite easy. However, I really struggled with everything else that surrounded it. The family itself were lovely and very welcoming, but they were also very, very strict and they had tight rules with me. Unlike staying in the farm, the time I had off wasn't really my own. I was obligated to be involved in all family activities. This meant I didn't really get a good rest, and because I was very physically sick at the time, it was just dragging down my mental energy and I wasn't enjoying my time with this family as much as I could have. I think as well, I was also shocked a little bit by the Spanish culture and how hard they work and how diligent they are. As a laid-back Aussie, I was kind of just expecting to go with the flow, but the schedule was very regimented. In this situation, I did have my own room, which meant that I wasn't sleeping in a tent, and I did have my own space at nighttime, which I really appreciated. They also fed me really well, 3 meals a day. I really couldn't complain all that much. I'm not going to lie, I was very much ready to leave this family when the time came. In fact, at one point I had considered leaving early, but I'm glad I stuck it out, and later on I emailed the family and found out that the boys had passed their English test with flying colours, so it felt really satisfying to know that I had helped out. My third experience was very different again. For this woofing stint, I stayed with a family in rural Thailand. My friends Wat and Po own a beautiful farm just 2 hours southwest of Chiang Mai in northern Thailand. This place was a little bit different because I was paying around $8 a day to stay there. A friend of Wat and Po's had helped set up woofing for them as a way of earning a little bit of extra income. So for me, it was much more of an experience. I didn't necessarily work as hard as I did in Hawaii and Spain. In fact, I generally only did about 3 hours farm work each day. Farming duties for me on this farm were mainly just cleaning up, weeding. One of the best parts of farming here was I actually got to see how rice works from start to finish. So I got to help cut down the rice in the fields and then see how they would process it after that. I tell you what, after helping with that, you will never look at rice the same way again. Accommodation on the farm was basic but comfortable. I was staying in a wooden hut alone, and I had a mattress with a mosquito net over the top and a little shower coming out of a tiny pipe. But honestly, it was all I needed. This farm was very separated from normal society. There was a little village on the spot there, which was great. So there were people around. However, my spare time just mainly involved sitting in the hammock, reading, helping Wat cooking dinner, or painting, or going for walks around the farm. One of the coolest things is the location, because the farm itself was surrounded by a bunch of different elephant sanctuaries. So in 10 minutes walking in any direction, I got to see a bunch of elephants, which was incredible. There were also nearby waterfalls, great hikes, great trails. It was just a perfect place to relax and rejuvenate, but also felt like I was contributing in some way to the family. They taught me so many amazing things about Thai culture. I was able to teach them a little bit about Tasmania and my background. And overall, it was just a really authentic exchange that benefited both parties. So as you've just heard, all 3 of my experiences were incredibly different. I'm so grateful they were different. It makes life a lot more interesting, and it shows how much variety you can get within the woofing and workaway world. In this next part of the video, I really want to share some tips that will help you with your woofing or workaway experience. Firstly, you need to distinguish what type of experience that you're looking for. There are several different factors in the placements that you need to consider. One of these factors include the type of work. If you're not able to do physically demanding work such as farming, look for something in workaway such as nannying or looking after a cafe, little things that aren't as physically strenuous. Most jobs don't vary in the amount of time, They do, however, vary in the level of intensity and the amount of brain power that you'll need. Some farms and places will only accept visitors in for a certain amount of time. For example, at both farms, you had to stay a minimum of 1 week, but you couldn't stay longer than 2 months. So make sure you're finding a place that fits within your time circumstances. I found that the 2-week time frame I had was a really good amount of time. It allowed me to get to know the family really well, get stuck into that work, but I was also heading off when I really felt ready to. Another factor to consider is the location. Are you willing to live in a remote place where there's not a lot of action going on? Or do you find yourself needing that action, needing constant access to society? If so, make sure you're staying at a place that is closer to a larger town or city. Hawaii was perfect in this because I felt I was separated a little bit from the world, but we were technically right in a suburb of Honolulu, so it worked out really well. I had the best of both worlds. Whereas staying in Thailand was entirely remote. There wasn't a lot to do up there, and I'm not going to lie, once the 2 weeks was over, I was very much ready to head back to Chiang Mai. The next thing to consider is diet. Most places are really flexible if you're vegan or veggie, gluten-free, whatever diet you follow. People are generally really great about catering, but make sure you check ahead just to ensure they'll be able to cater for you. Farms are so good in the fact that if you love good fruit and veggies, you're never far from it and you're going to be able to go pick out whatever you like for yourself. Another factor to consider is people. Some farms you will be working alongside other backpackers or travelers or people like yourself, whereas in other circumstances you'll be going it alone. So when I did farm work in both Hawaii and Thailand, I did have other people working alongside me, and I found this was really, really great, especially as a solo traveler, just to have a little bit of company, especially towards the end of the day where we could hang out and do things together. Alternatively, if you're traveling as a couple, this works out really well because a lot of woofing placements look specifically for couples. Just make sure you know how introverted or extroverted you are and then adjust accordingly. In most circumstances, one of the best things about woofing is that you're not paying anything to be there. However, when I was in Thailand, because it was a source of income for the people who owned the farm, I was contributing. So just make sure that you're checking whether there is that little catch or not, if you will have to provide something, and make sure you know how much you're willing to provide if that's the case. However, 9 times out of 10, it is purely an exchange based upon food and board with no money involved, which makes it perfect for you budget travelers like me. Now, when you're scrolling through HelpX or WorkAway or the woofing websites, be specific with your filters. There are so many farms and workaway opportunities out there. You'll be surprised, even if you pick the most specific filters in a certain place doing the particular thing, you'll probably come across a farm that you really like or a placement you really like that suits all of your needs. However, when you're ready to reach out to someone, pay close attention to the captions and the profiles that they write. I've typically found that the people who include a ton of information in their captions generally reflect that in real life and can get a little bit pedantic about the details. Whereas if somebody is short and sharp, to the point, but still enough information to cover the basis online, chances are they're going to be really good communicators in real life as well. This leads on to the next point, is once they do reach out, make sure they're communicating properly. If it takes weeks or months to reply, forget about it. You want to be staying with somebody who's on the ball, who's excited to have you, and if they are, they will communicate effectively. Another important thing to do is to read the reviews. All websites will have people who have stayed on that farm or worked for that person before, and you'll be able to see their honest thoughts and opinions, and generally those things don't lie. Ensure that you plan ahead and that you prepare. Don't expect to message somebody a week out and for it all to fall into place. Give it at least a month or two before you arrive to get organized, to find the right place that works. I promise there will be some type of placement out there that will fit all your needs and wants, and it will be a really beneficial exchange for both you and the person that you're working for. Now, a few practical things I want to share is to definitely pack sensibly. You are working on a farm, so you need to make sure you have good sturdy shoes, clothes you don't mind getting dirty, or if you're working for somebody in their small business, make sure you can dress appropriately according to what the circumstance is. Definitely ensure that your insurance is up to date and ready to go. Farm work generally is pretty safe, but if something goes wrong and you do injure yourself, you want to make sure that you're covered. Now, chances are, if you are woofing or going on a workaway placement, then you're combining it with some other type of travel. You need to make a specific decision to get out of that travel mindset and into a working mindset. Now, the great thing about woofing is that you can generally have a balance between the two. However, when you're working, be present, be all there, be willing to get your hands dirty. If you do this, you will feel more satisfied, feel like you've given back, and the people that you're working for will be so happy with what you've contributed. They might even add in a few extra perks. Just be ready to work and don't expect to be sitting around sipping pina coladas on the beach. Another tip I have for you is to make the most of your time off. You'll probably have more time off than what you're expecting, and I'd really encourage you to go explore the local area with that time. Alternatively, make sure you bring entertainment as well, especially if you're in a rural area. I'm talking downloaded movies on Netflix or books or drawing, whatever entertains you, bring something along for those quiet times. Whatever you do, go into the experience with an open mind and be willing to learn. You never know what you're going to get with a woofing or a workaway placement, and it could be entirely different to what you're expecting. So just limit your expectations so that whatever you find, whatever you discover along the way, you'll feel good about. I really want to encourage you and confirm that jumping into a woofing and workaway placement is 100% worth the risk. It's good on so many levels. You learn about the culture, you're helping somebody out. In exchange, you're not spending as much to travel. You get to explore the local place. When you find a great place, every element can come together and it will be one of your travel highlights. I am so excited to do more of these placements in the future, and I'll make sure I share them all with you. So guys, you know what to do. Click the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. I post new videos on Tracking Ed every Wednesday. See you next time and have a great day wherever you are in the world.